Hey there and welcome. Let's take just a few minutes today and talk about a key concept when it comes to setting artful boundaries, and that is this idea of self-sovereignty. Now, self-sovereignty and self-awareness are intimately connected, but they are a little bit different. So let's take just a moment at first to see what the differences are and how they relate to each other and how they relate to artful boundary setting. So, self-awareness is what you think it is. It's being aware of yourself, knowing how you think, how you operate, how you behave, how you typically respond in different kinds of situations, understanding your own internal landscape. Maybe not understanding it, but at least being aware that you tend to act in certain ways in different situations. Self-sovereignty takes this another step further and puts it in your hands that you are responsible for your thoughts, action, words, and behaviors. You're in charge of these things. No one else is. We're talking about sovereignty. We're talking about, politically, it's referred to as the supreme power. And so if you are self-sovereign, you are your own supreme power. You are the one who is calling the shots about how you're going to do things, how you're going to speak, how you're going to act, how you're going to show up, how you're going to carry yourself. And so self-sovereignty is really crucial when we're talking about artful boundaries, particularly because a lot of folks don't necessarily take onus for how they show up in the world, or they think that they have to show up a specific way because people are depending them and they can't say no because, oh my gosh, if I say no, what's going to happen? And then people won't like me or I won't get the job. And all of these different, sometimes valid, but all of these different concerns that can show up around that. And so self-sovereignty is a way of taking your power back and saying, no, I'm in charge here. I get to decide. You're not in charge of me. And so when it comes to artful boundary setting, this is really crucial because if you don't have self-awareness and if you don't carry it out to that next step of self-sovereignty, you're missing a massive part of the equation of artful boundary setting. And so what this might look like in an example that is not boundary related is that, say you're going on a road trip, say you're, trying to drive from, I don't know, California to Florida or something like this. And you are on your way and you have checked your weather app and you find out, oh my gosh, there's a huge accident on this highway. It's going to slow us down by, 5 hours, something like this. Maybe it's a very extreme delay, it seems like. And so what do you do with that? You can certainly go that way and spend your time on the highway and maybe talk to whoever you're with or listen to your audiobook or your podcast or your music. Or you can see if there's a different way. You can reroute. You can see, okay, is there a way we can get around this where I'm not going to lose that much time or I'm not going to spend that much time not really making any progress? And so when you take self-awareness, that internal awareness of how you react to different situations, how you show up in different situations, what are the things that have triggered you in the past, and how do you then want to deal with them, and you step into a place of feeling responsible and capable and able to take responsibility for yourself, well, now you've changed the game. Now you aren't susceptible to whatever inputs are coming in. No, you're standing in your power and you're able to say, yeah, that's not going to work for me. And you can set some really beautiful, artful boundaries and create some space for truly meaningful interaction. So how do you do this? How do you, one, if you don't have the self-awareness, build it, and then also step into a place of self-sovereignty? Well, let's talk through a few ways right now. There are 4 ways I'm going to talk you through, and take what works for you and leave the rest. If something sounds intriguing or you're a little bit nervous about it and you're like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that, that's a really good sign that it might be something for you to try. So without further ado, the first thing is meditation. And meditation can look any number of ways. There are 2 types of meditation that will be particularly helpful as you're building self-awareness and self-sovereignty. One is a quiet, reflective meditation. You can be sitting or walking, but this is the type of meditation where you're not taking in information from the outside world, not a guided meditation, but creating a space of quiet so that you can hear your own internal voice, so that you can pay attention to what are the thoughts that are coming up? What are the words that are coming into my mind? How does my body feel as I'm moving through this? And this makes space for you to be able to reflect on what in the past maybe has or hasn't worked in the moment as you're thinking about boundaries and maybe meditating on boundary setting and self-awareness and self-sovereignty. What kinds of things show up? So having a quiet meditation is really a space to help you create awareness around your own internal landscape, building that muscle of self-awareness. In our modern world, we have a ton of different distractions and things to pay attention to, and family and work and social media and side projects and gardening and hobbies, and the list goes on and on and on. And so having meditation allows all this to quiet. And once it's quiet, you're able to turn inward and really notice what's going on inside. You have to be able to know what's going on inside before you can act on the outside and affect the change that you want to affect. The second type of meditation that can be helpful is sort of fast forwarding and talking to your future self in a way and setting the intention of, okay, if I was in a space of self-sovereignty and really taking responsibility for myself without fear, what would that look like? And sitting with that image and seeing what comes up. You can add journaling onto your meditation or keep a notepad nearby if you want to write things down as they come up, or just be in the experience and notice how it goes. What shows up? What does that future version of you have to say? How do they feel physically? How do they think? What are the words that are going through their mind? What is their body posture like? Who do they talk to? How do they talk about the people that they're talking to? You can dive into this and spend as much time with it as you want, and exploring that future self version of you can just be very instrumental, particularly if you're afraid of really owning who you are and owning your power and owning your space and being willing to set the boundaries that you want to be setting. So meditation is the first thing. The second tool that I want to offer you is, what are your prior triggers? We all have them. There are words that folks say to us and it just 0 to 60 in, 0.5 seconds, if not less. And if you have a spouse or if you live with folks you are also close to, they are your biggest teachers in this space. These are the folks who most likely they know exactly, where to poke, maybe not on purpose, but these are the folks where when you are interacting with them, if something comes up and all of a sudden, you find yourself, enraged or jealous or frustrated or irritated, just seemingly maybe out of nowhere, this is a really good tool to cue you into what have your prior triggers been if you're not sure where to start. Many of us are aware of a few prior triggers, and we can probably bring some up as you're sitting here listening to me, maybe like, oh yeah, I totally know. Like, it's this person that I see every holiday and they always ask me this question and it drives me absolutely up the wall. Or it's this person that I have to be with at work and they say and do X, Y, Z, and it just, oh my God, like I can't handle it and it makes me insane. So any thoughts that you have where you're thinking that person makes me X, Y, Z, makes is the word that we're looking for here. This is going to clue you in that there's some kind of a trigger there, that you are giving away your power to that person, not necessarily on purpose, but you're giving away your power to that person and allowing their behavior, words, actions to influence you in a way that is impeding your ability to do what you want to do or do what you need to do, or feel what you would like to be feeling or think what you would like to be thinking. And so as you're engaged in this process, be very mindful of self-judgment. This isn't a process to judge yourself or be really harsh with yourself or say, oh my gosh, I'm just the worst, I can't do this, like everything triggers me and I'm just awful. No. We all have these things. We all go through this cycle. And so I encourage you, just with gentleness and compassion, to explore, in those intimate relationships that you have, where do things show up so fast? These like really heightened emotions just sort of get blown really high up really quickly. And also, where do you have the thought that this person makes me whatever, they make me so mad or they make me act in this way? And notice that and see if you can rephrase it to, in the presence of this person, I notice that I feel X, Y, or Z. This is a very subtle way to start to bring your power back to yourself and stop giving it away. Nobody is making you do anything. Nobody is making you feel anything. Your feelings are totally valid and you're allowed to have all of them, and there's nothing wrong with that. And at the same time, it's really important to be aware of the fact that you are in fact generating your emotions and you are in fact generating your feelings. And so you have to be aware of that as you're moving forward and engaged in this journey of learning to set artful boundaries and not feeling guilty about it in the process. The third tool that I want to offer you is it's a two-parter. So the first part of this is thinking back to times when you wanted to say no, but you didn't. Was there a project that you were offered, or were you told to do something by your boss, or were you asked out to dinner, or were you invited to an event, or did you go to a conference professionally that you really didn't want to? Any kind of thing in any arena of your life. Just think back, and this can be helpful to have a quiet space, and if you want to have your journal out, this can be also very helpful, or a notepad or some way of notating what comes up. But thinking back, what are some times when you wanted to say no, but you didn't? The second piece is, how did that feel in your body? And it may take some doing to think back and remember, oh, right, it was X, Y, and Z. Or if you're relatively new at this and you're still like, oh my gosh, I can't say no ever, you may have many, many, many examples. I encourage you to be in your body as you're doing this experience, as you are doing this exercise is the word I'm looking for. Pay attention to what sensations arise in your body. Now, we talked about non-judgment when we were talking about understanding our prior triggers. Similarly here, use as non-judgmental, objective language as you can as you're describing what the physical sensations are. Because the point here isn't for you to judge the emotion or judge the sensation. The point here is simply to build awareness. And the more gentle you can be with this, the more compassion you have in the process, the less judgment you have in the process, the better able you will be to start to connect to your body. This is important because as you start to do this, you'll recognize, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so awful physically, and it's because I'm not saying no. And I'm really giving so much away in this process. Why? I want to feel well. I want to be comfortable in my body. I don't want to be exhausted. I don't want to feel heavy, or I don't want to feel, uncomfortable, or whatever words or whatever sensations are showing up for you. And you'll start to recognize the fact that yes, not setting boundaries, not saying no, not having self-awareness and self-sovereignty really is affecting you in a way that you would rather it not. And so this can also be a useful tool because as you're in the moment, you can do this exercise for if you didn't say no and you wanted to after the fact, when you had to follow through on that thing, how did it feel? How did it feel if you had to cancel that thing? Maybe at the last minute or go back on your word. But also, how did it feel when you knew you wanted to say no and then you said yes? That moment, if you can understand the physical sensations in that moment, that's going to cue you in, even if you are, sorry, someone's calling me, even if you are unable to maybe intellectualize or in the moment make cognitive sense of like, oh wait, I wanted to say no here. Your body will tell you. Your body will never lie to you. And so some situations happen so fast, and it's really hard to get our brains on board as it's happening. But if you can cue into those physical sensations, you're going to be much more on the ball when those situations arise, and you won't necessarily be as surprised by them or as blindsided by them as you go. Again, this takes time. This isn't something that necessarily you're going to be a pro at overnight, but it is a very helpful tool to get tuned into your body and notice and understand what's going on in these moments physically for you. The last tool I'm going to offer you today is something that I talk about a lot, and that is this word should. So should is a orange flag somewhere between yellow and red that alerts you that you are not acting in your own best interest necessarily. So should is all about there's an expectation that you're taking on. And sometimes we want to take on expectations and we are happy to do that. And there may be some things in your life that, for example, if you have children or a pet, oh, I should take a walk with my family, or I should take the dog for a walk. Oh, I should pick up my kids from school. Well, should you, or do you want to? Is this something that you get to do? Or is there something that you picked up along the way that you don't really want to do? I see this show up a lot of times when folks are talking about exercise or movement or taking on projects. Oh, I really should do this project because it's going to get me clients, or I really should say yes to my boss because then they're going to think more highly of me, and then I'm more likely to get a raise or a promotion. Well, maybe, and who says? I encourage you to consider, where are these expectations coming from, and are they valid? Sometimes folks will say like, oh, I should run, or I should exercise more. And as we talk about it, it's like, well, do you want to do that? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then why do you think that you should? And then usually it's because they've heard something in popular media, or their friend told them that they ran and lost a bunch of weight, or, whatever it is, what have you. And so that I say, okay, well, if you want to do that, cool. If you don't want to do that, then why are you trying to force yourself to do something that's not aligned with where you're at physically, mentally, emotionally? And there's nothing wrong with not doing that thing. There's no moral judgment on these things. And so I encourage you to pay attention to where the shoulds show up in your life, because these are going to alert you to places where you have abandoned yourself. If there's something that you're saying you should do that you don't want to do, that you have no interest in, it's not critical for your life, it's not like paying your taxes, you're like, oh, I should pay my taxes. Yes, absolutely, that's important for legal reasons, right? So if it's not one of these essential things that really does need to happen, and most things are not that, you're giving yourself away. You're abandoning yourself in this process. And so even if you're aware of your physical sensations, even if you are aware of your prior triggers, you're aware of how your body shows up in these places, if you are succumbing or surrendering to all the shoulds that are showing up, well, you're still not acting from a place of self-sovereignty, because you're allowing the world to dictate to you what is or isn't appropriate. So these are the 4 tools I have for you today: meditation, understanding your prior triggers, noticing the physical sensations at the times when you wanted to say no, but you said yes instead, and then also paying attention to the shoulds. Of course, this should go. I just said it myself. It's so funny when I say should after I talked about being aware of the shoulds, but this might go without saying, but as you're going through this process, of course, pay attention to your own integrity and act always with kindness as best you can towards yourself and also to the folks around you. All right, my friend, take care, and we will talk next time. Bye.